Hi, this is Tim, and welcome to the Alchemy podcast from Effigy Press. I'm here in our DC studio with LeeAnna. Hi, LeeAnna. How are you today?
I'm fantastic, Tim. How are you?
I'm great too. I want to talk for a minute about what Alchemy, the podcast, is. So, Alchemy is a podcast about life, love, and creative writing, also known as fiction, and also pretty much anything that grabs our imagination or piques our interest, and how that can inspire writers or be of interest to readers or folks who are just kind of interested in some of the topics that we stumble into. What we like to do is take the fascinating but sometimes gritty realities of the world and turn that into inspiration or joy or solace. We've heard from so many non writers or just good old normal readers that they've found these topics to be surprising, to be new to them, and have brought some joy into their lives or some reflection on some of the difficulties of life, which is nonetheless what inspires writers often to write. We have a special focus on young adult and new adult writers, but we're absolutely open to writers of other types of fiction. The focus on young adult and new adult is because that's a stage in life when individuals have these huge decisions to make and life seems so complex. To focus on people towards the end of their life is also really very interesting, but at that point of a young adult, new adult main character, the choices are particularly stark and can really, really alter the trajectory of their lives. So today is January the 1st, 2025. We've been in pilot for like 4 or 5 months now, essentially operating in secret. Today, we're posting globally the first 5 podcasts that we did, and we'll post one more each week until we feel we need a break. So that's probably another 15 podcasts, one each week for the next 15 weeks. But right now, to start, we're posting the first 5. Once we've done 20, that to me constitutes a whole season. We'll take a break, we'll go on vacation, or actually get some real work done. Because after all, LeeAnna and I, you'll agree, LeeAnna, we both have families, we both have actual jobs.
We have lives. Sometimes I have a life. It depends which week it is. I have a life this week, okay?
Incidentally, I have 30 more topics that I want to get to in terms of a podcast. So there's so much ground we want to cover. New topics keep coming up. Every day we have topics suggested by our staff writer, The Snark. We have topics that will be suggested from readers, which is like, could you delve into this topic, which we absolutely welcome. So we're coming up with new ideas all of the time. I think this is an amazingly fertile area, just the complexities of life and what that can mean to think about the world in which we live, but also for writers to think about how to make your work more interesting and maintain momentum as a writer, which is something that's very, very hard to do, as I know as a writer. So I want to talk for a second about how this all started. For me, as a writer, I went through a journey of writing my first 3 books that was a pretty tough journey, and I had a lot of support from individuals, most notably Lucy and Evangeline, you know who you are, but also many others as part of a network sponsored by HarperCollins that shuttered a few years ago, and we as writers were all dispersed to the 4 winds. That led me to start Effigy Press, which you'll find at www.effigypress.com, which is in many ways my way of paying back for all of the help I received from other writers when I was starting my writing journey. What are we trying to do with Effigy Press? We're trying to help writers, like I said, give them more depth to their art, give them more depth to their characters, their plot lines, but also give them the support, encouragement, and ideas that will enrich their work and hopefully keep that writer engaged with their writing so that they get to finish a book. That's something that's incredibly difficult to do. I know, having written 3 books, the first one especially was one of the hardest things I ever did. So we want to help writers complete their work, deepen their work, but also find new audiences. And maybe someone in that audience is actually a publisher, which has happened in the past. Now, we're not a publisher. We're really just about helping writers. We also want to help readers find work that is perhaps less conventional, more gritty, more explosive than a regular publisher might be bothered to take on. Basically, in some ways, what we're doing is democratizing fiction and the writing of fiction and the consumption of fiction. Now, the podcast, we started that because I thought there were just so many topics I wanted to cover that would help writers and help non-writers in terms of a better understanding of the world, that we literally couldn't cover that just with blogs, and they couldn't be fully explored with just a blog or an article. So here we are. It's a podcast. I had just actually set up the studio with all of the equipment and wanted to test the equipment, and LeeAnna showed up, and I said, well, could you help me test all this equipment? So we decided to do a whole dry run. LeeAnna, do you remember what that topic for that trial podcast was?
Was it the mice are calling?
That is correct. It's the mice are calling. It's based on the phrase, it's about intuition, and it's based on the phrase, if you think you have mice, you have mice.
And you have more than one.
Mice is plural.
Mice.
You have mouses.
Yeah. Yes,
No,
I remember that because I had discussed it the night before with you about how I never listened to my intuition, yet my intuition is strong.
Well, that's like Cassandra, right? The ability to see the future, but no one would believe her. Right. So you have strong intuition, but you don't believe it. Mm-hmm. You're your own Cassandra.
Oh, no. This is bad.
Weird, actually.
I know, it's very weird.
By the way, I wouldn't say the podcast was great. It wasn't terrible. Some of the feedback was not that great, I got to be honest. It was partly because I kept on using and reusing kind of mouse jokes, which just really wore on our reviewer. Also, we found that we were kind of talking over each other. Mm-hmm. We've been a bit better about that. We're not on video doing this podcast, but if someone is going on and on, the other person will like raise their hand like a kid in school to say, can I squeeze something in
Did you
here?
tell our family secret? Seriously. Don't tell them.
Anyway, there was no going back after that. We decided to continue doing this podcast. We come from very different perspectives, LeeAnna and I, and that's one way we can enrich the whole exploration of these many, many topics that we have covered and intend to cover. So, LeeAnna, what is your favorite podcast of the ones that we've done?
You know, it might be Dover Beach, Dover Bitch.
Dover Beach versus Dover Bitch. That is a great one.
That was a good one. I like that one. And the one was the World War I Memorial.
I think that's called Shocking Results.
That was good. I like that one.
I did like that one. I've often talked about that particular memorial and the implications of that and what it could do for writers.
I love history, so that's anything with history I love.
Yeah, and then we did the one that was really tough, which was Breaking the Bro Code, where we went through all the male stereotypes. I don't know. That was a particularly weird one.
I think you were just trying to label the men updated, but that's okay. I don't mind that.
Anyway, just to let you know also that Alchemy is not just a podcast. It is, as I said, at www.effgypress.com. It's also blogs by our staff writer, The Snark, and some absurdly snarky reviews of our podcasts by the same individual, The Snark. Writer's prompts, so things to get the creative juices flowing for writers, and the submissions that writers have made. And most importantly, and really at the heart of what we do at Effigy Press, is that writers will send the first 600 words of their novel, short story, whatever it is, and we'll give a constructive review of that. And you too can join in and say, hey, I really like this, or, maybe you could improve here. The only stipulation is that it has to be constructive, because we're talking about writers who are putting their hearts, their skill, their art on the line. So no bashing people. It has to be constructive. But that's a way, I think, for writers to, and it echoes what we did with HarperCollins, it's a way to help writers improve their art. There's an enormous amount that I can tell, and anyone actually can tell from those first 600 words. And lastly, the Effigy edition, which is a newsletter in which we'll have the most interesting work submitted to us, whether it's from writer's prompts or the work submitted to us as part of one of these constructive reviews, plus other fascinating updates. I'm hoping that'll be on a monthly basis, maybe less so as we ramp up. So please do participate. Do write to us. Please enjoy in some of the topics that we've picked.